Okay, I have started the recording.
Okay.
All right. And the recording is going. Okay. All right. Fantastic. Okay. Welcome everybody. Glad you're here for the July, the GPN monthly speaker series. My name's Brian King. I'm a co-host here with Maya Rhodes. And today we have Myriam Gomez with us. Miriam's going to give a presentation on the WCAG 2.1 ADA compliance deadline that's coming up. She works with the City of Carrollton, Texas, right? GIS Analyst for the last 3 years, but's been doing it closer to 9, 10 years. And so it's got a background here with UT Arlington, a BS in Environmental Science, and very happy to have her today. So she's going to be talking about her experiences and implementing this ADA compliance deadline. So we're going to go ahead and let you take it away, Miriam. Again, really appreciate you being here with us. And there you go.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I hope everyone's enjoying their lunch. Thank you all for coming. Uh, as previously said, my name is Myriam Gomez. I did want to provide a little QR code if you guys want to follow along on your own screen. Please feel free to do so while I run through the introduction that Brian already gave. So my name is Myriam Gomez. I work for the City of Carrollton. I have been a GIS analyst there for the past 3 years. I've been working in GIS for 9 years, nearly 10. I recently acquired my GISP like 2 weeks ago, so that's very exciting. I've done a lot of work within the public works, environmental, and engineering spaces. That's the bulk load of what I've been doing. But most recently, I've worked on experience builder implementations, specifically switching over or upgrading our old applications to more current ones. And I think because of this, um, I became the sort of de facto ADA compliance coordinator within our five-person GIS department over at the City of Carrollton. We began this process at the beginning of March of this year. And at the time, the deadline was April 24th of this year also. So it gave us a very narrow window to actually finish ADA compliance. It was about 2 months all told. And in the meantime, we were also dealing with upgrading our enterprise portal environment. So we were doing both of those things at the same time. So it was kind of stressful and felt like a lot to put into, that same time period. I luckily had the help of two of my other colleagues to do this ADA compliance stuff, but I know that some of you run your own one-person teams. Some of you do have smaller teams than we do. Some of you have larger teams. So the process itself is going to look different for everyone. I do want to say, for the most part, this presentation isn't going to be how to ADA compliance. It's more of a guide on the questions that we had while we were doing this process, the tools that we found useful, and more importantly, free tools that we found, and resources from other organizations that also put things together for organizations to look at. I know that the deadline has been pushed back for everyone, so we can all breathe a little bit easier. But in the meantime, I do hope that the presentation can help you all with your ADA compliance journeys. So we're going to get started. So a little background on the City of Carrollton with regards to ADA compliance and accessibility. In 2024, according to the American Community Survey, the City of Carrollton had just under 135,000 people. And of these, 12,750 reported living with a disability. So that's about 9.5% of the population within the City of Carrollton. Of these people, 4,800 reported having hearing difficulties, 2,100 had vision difficulties, and 5,300 had ambulatory difficulties, meaning that they found it difficult to get around independently or with assistance. So wheelchair, walker, canes, etc. And it also includes things like people with Parkinson's or people who are born without limbs or people who lose fingers. Those all count as ambulatory issues. 9.5% doesn't really sound like a lot when you look at it as a number, but that's basically 1 in 10 people within the city of Carrollton who have accessibility needs that at the time prior to us doing this whole ADA compliance process weren't being serviced properly. They probably would have found using our products a little difficult, if not annoying. Um, I have included the link within the presentation down here to the US Census Bureau, which is where I got the data that I referenced. You can type in your own city, county, or state to get statistics for your own area of interest, including disability statistics, which can be really helpful potentially if you're trying to get funding for your own ADA compliance process, or if you are trying to argue for some new implementations or new products, etc. Let's go to a background on WCAG 2.1. So WCAG stands for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. These guidelines, which were developed with the World Wide Web Consortium or the W3C, are created to provide a standardized web content accessibility guide to help meet the needs of users who are on the internet. So it's not necessarily created for people with disabilities. It's created for everyone to ideally have a better experience within any space online. This applies to individual businesses, organizations, and governments internationally. In 2024, the US Department of Justice gave its final ruling on the Title II regulation that contains the American with Disabilities Act, which includes a requirement that aligns with the W3C that would ensure web and mobile content to be more accessible. The compliance dates are delayed, as I've previously mentioned, and they are now as follows. State and local governments with a population of 50,000 people or more have till April 26, 2027. So that would apply to cities like Carrollton. And state and local governments with a population of less than 50,000 have until April 26, 2028. So that's 2 more years. It's pretty nice. I'm envious. Even though we are technically finished, we are still in a QA/QC process. So if we catch issues or if someone points out any issues, we are still fixing them. I just caught some recently and I made those modifications to make sure that we stay as compliant as possible. So what does this actually involve? What are we changing? In short, anything that is inside of a web page, anything inside of a website. This includes alt text for images, anything that counts as non-text content. So your images, videos, GIFs, PDFs, for example, flyers that you're creating or exported maps, if those sound familiar to us. It includes video and audio clips, so making sure that they have closed captioning or subtitles, having detailed descriptions. For people who need devices like screen readers or hearing aids, making sure that your text is legible. And it's not just, text size being big enough for everybody to see, but also making sure that your font choices aren't too crazy and make it so that someone is having a hard time reading that. And color choices. If, you have a specific background color, making sure that the text that you put on top of it is legible. For those of us that work in the web app space, it's also ensuring that the entire app itself is legible to screen readers, to keyboard navigation, making sure that it works with your keyboard, which I know it's not something that we typically consider when we're using a web app, but some people do need it. Having reasonable alternatives for those who might need them. And I know that's a pretty broad statement, but for example, having a printable option of the information or data that you're showing on a web map, for example, being able to export the data tables that have the information just in a written format so that someone who finds it difficult to navigate a web map or finds it difficult to just look through a web map still has the ability to get that information in a different way. This also includes committing to testing and updating your content to ensure that it stays accessible. It's not just a one and done process, it's a continuous thing. It's something that you will have to apply workflow-wise to your organization as a whole. So, where does one start with ADA compliance? I think there's a lot of different ways to start. For the most part, I think in the city of Carrollton, we found ourselves a bit lost at first. But I think taking an inventory of everything that you have that's publicly accessible is a really great place to start because it gives you a holistic view of everything that you might have to modify. Knowing that you have this master list can help you in the long run with cross-referencing the actual WCAG requirements instead of changing one thing and then going through all your other apps and then trying to figure it out that way. Luckily for my team, our CIO, because our department is in the IT department, our CIO generated a compliance checklist of all the requirements for the WCAG and sent it to us. I took this list and put it into a spreadsheet. I added tracking statuses like not started, in progress, as well as adding percentages to the completion status of all of these tasks. This kept everyone inside of the department informed, but what it also gave us was the ability to share this not only with the GIS department, but also with the CIO and the city manager's office. Since they would occasionally have questions about where we were in this ADA compliance process, it didn't make sense to stop every once in a while for however long and report, yep, we've done these things, we haven't done this yet. What they could do is once we shared that spreadsheet with them, they immediately saw what we had finished, what we hadn't finished, and there was a status bar up at the top that gave percent complete for the entire list. So they always knew where we were in the process. There was no ambiguity about how far along we were. And it also kept us in check to make sure that we were actually doing the work. Now, this spreadsheet itself is 122 entries. It's quite a lot. And it's basically a condensed version of all the requirements on the W3C website. I am able to share it if anyone is interested, but as I said before, it is just a generated list from the W3C website. But if you guys want it, I can share it. In the meantime, though, I did include some more digestible lists for those of us who don't want 122 entries worth of information. So the first two buttons that I've included here are from the Colorado GIS Accessibility Guide and the Boulder County GIS website, so both from the state of Colorado. Quite frankly, I think they have some of the best resources for ADA compliance. They've done genuinely amazing work. I think they've started the process far before the rest of us even thought about it. They have easy to understand checklists with that non-legal speak that makes more sense to you or me. It also includes tabs like an Esri's Builders tab, which shows examples for Esri applications that are more accessible. So things like dashboards, experience builders, hubs, etc. They have an example for each of those in a template format so that you can see what they've been doing and potentially apply that to your organization. The next button that I've included is the State of Minnesota's Accessibility Guide for interactive web maps. So this is dedicated specifically to web maps. This is a fully indexed document, so it's a PDF that you can click through, and it has a checklist that also has that non-legal jargon that's a little bit easier to understand. They also included examples for different things that they implemented within their organization. And it also includes, including the example, but it also has a run through of how they built a custom web app with a keyboard accessible select tool. So right now, there's actually no way for the select tool to be keyboard accessible on its own outside of you building one yourself. So they did that with ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript, which is pretty cool. I recommend checking it out. It's in the document. And finally, I do have a resource from the W3C called How to Meet WCAG. It's a web page that's a quick reference guide, but it does have plainer language. So it's not just legal speak like the one on the federal website. And it also has examples for passing and failing attempts. So if you are in the middle of your process and you're like, I'm not entirely sure if the things that I'm doing right now count as a successful ADA compliant attempt. You can go on here and see examples that they provide for passing attempts and failing attempts to hopefully get rid of that ambiguity. So those are some of the good lists that we found. I know everyone's thinking right now, this sounds so easy. Uh, uh, Unfortunately, I wish I could say that it was really easy. I think it was just a lot of information in a very short amount of time. We had a lot of questions, a lot of things that we were completely unfamiliar with, just terminology wise. And the list that I provide here is very short, but things like navigating with a keyboard and checking your contrasts and how many symbols should we really change? Um, how do you make sure that your apps are good, or what do you do if not everything is perfectly compliant? As you can see down here, I include examples of basically what I did, just entire lists of, hey, here's my water system app. Here's the labels that I need to change. Hey, the sewer system app needs to be changed this way. I took notes on our actual old app and said, I don't like the way that this looks. I need this to change. Just annotating everything. This is what our actual spreadsheet looked like. Here are the, percent complete. These are things that the status is. And if you can see up here, it's kind of tiny. We actually got to a 98% completion overall at the end of this process. So it was pretty good, but it wasn't a total 100%. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's start with the first thing, keyboard navigation. So WebAIM, which is Web Accessibility in Mind, says that there's an estimated 7 million Americans that rely on keyboard or switch devices to navigate the web. While I was learning what buttons to use for our web apps in keyboard navigation, I essentially wrote all of these down as things that I would need to know. And this running list actually became our map tips button pop-up inside of our applications. So now anyone, including people that don't ordinarily use keyboard navigation, know what keys work within our web apps. If you are working inside of Experience Builder, Esri does have an article that outlines, for the most part, what keys work inside of the application. But I did find that I think maybe the last three, so A, D, and N were missing, which A rotates your map counterclockwise, D rotates it clockwise, and N rectifies your map back up to north. I think using keyboard navigation on your current applications is a really great way to see how people are experiencing your apps, because until you do it yourself, you're not seeing the gaps. And I think it's a really, really useful tool. So highly, highly recommend. We also created something called Navigations and Tools Experience Builder, which is essentially just a guide for anyone that doesn't use web apps or any Esri product constantly. It's not lost on me that, we as GIS professionals know for the most part how to navigate through a web app. But for the most part, regular people don't think about it like this. So we essentially included an experience builder link that shows with pictures, GIFs, clips, and detailed descriptions what each button does exactly inside of the applications, the behavior, what they do, how they do it. So for contrast and symbology, the general rule of thumb here is that symbology on a map has to be uniquely identifiable in color, not just in color, but in shape, and potentially also be labeled so that it's easy to identify. I've included a short clip here on the two tools that are really good for checking contrast, and they're both free. So I'm not going to play it just because of the size of my screen here, but I did include timestamps for which example is at what time. I'm just going to give a quick little run through of what they actually are. So one of them is natively inside of your web browser right now. It's called DevTools, and there is a little arrow symbol on the top left-hand corner that you'll see on DevTools that is called the Inspect Element in Page. So this allows you to hover your cursor over anything inside of your web page, and it'll yield this little box showing you general information about whatever it is that you're hovering over, but it also gives you a score and a little green check mark if your stuff has a good contrast. If your text features are compliant, it'll give you a little red check mark. If they're not, it'll give you a little X. I think this is really good for text checks because it does account for large text sizes and small text sizes because those requirements are actually different. So it'll tell you the difference and it'll tell you if they're good. The second option is the WebAIM contrast checker, which you can use for color checks. I found it really useful to use inside of actual web maps because you can't use the dev tools inside of a web map. It just doesn't have that granularity, but you can use WebAIM for that. It has like a little pixel tool that you can select anything inside of and compare it to the color that you want to, and it'll tell you a grade for passing or failing. If you are passing, you'll check the AA rating, which is what you're usually going to check against. AAA is like gold star compliance, which is really good, but it's also kind of difficult to get. This tool is a little finicky, and I did write that in there. Because you have to get exactly the right pixel for exactly the thing that you're testing. So I found it easier to use inside of web maps than text checks because a text is, they're a little skinny or something. And so they're a little more difficult to exactly get the right color. But if you're doing something like a polygon or a symbol, it's a little bit easier to grab that color and check it. So focus indicators and headings. When we started this process, I genuinely had no idea what a focus indicator was. But in short, when you're navigating with your keyboard, uh, if you press your tab button, which I'm not going to do right now because it might shoot me back up to to the top of my presentation, but you get this little halo around whatever it is that you're currently selecting with your keyboard, and that's your focus indicator. This focus indicator has size requirements and color requirements. Essentially, it has to stand out within your applications. So you can change this color inside of Experience Builder for versions 11.5 and up. For those of you who do not have that version, I suggest making sure that whatever color you end up picking inside of your web apps does not hide your focus indicator so that you are still compliant. So tab navigation follows a hierarchical heading structure. So it will go H1, H2, paragraph, etc. It follows a top to bottom, left to right, so the same way that you and I read. And you can organize this automatically with the AY11 button that's at the very bottom of your Experience Builder editor. However, this doesn't always work perfectly if you are building custom experience builders, and you'll have to manually order your stuff in the outline pane in Experience Builder. So, and you'll notice this when you start clicking through your applications with the tab button. You'll notice that all of a sudden your button goes from the top to the bottom of the screen, and you're like, that order is not correct. I need to switch it around. So, how are people checking how accessible their apps are? Honestly, we used a bunch of different things collectively because there was no one true way to make sure if you are compliant. For the most part, except for hiring someone else to do a accessibility check, which I guess we could still potentially do. But for the meantime, we used a couple of different tools. So we used DevTools, as I mentioned earlier, to do contrast checks, but it's also really good to use for mobile viewing. If you don't have the ability to test your application on a phone or a tablet, you can still look at your applications in mobile aspect sizes by specifically telling it specific pixel size and testing it that way to make sure that everything still looks correct. We use Narrator, which is a Windows native screen reader, and it's free if you have a Windows computer. And I will say this, Narrator has a bit of a learning curve to use, so patience is required because it does kind of try to read through everything that's on your screen. I do recommend if you're only testing one thing, only put that one thing on whatever it is that your narrator is reading. Because it does get a little overwhelming when it's trying to read two different things at the same time. But it is super helpful because it will read through your entire application. And if you missed an alt text somewhere or a description somewhere and you hear it that it's not there, then you can add it in. We also use this website called WaveScan, which is a free site where you put in your app URLs into this website, and the site will scan it and it'll give you a report regarding things that you should be fixing based on severity. So not all of them are super important to be addressed, but there will be certain things that it'll tell you these are essential for you to fix to be more compliant. We also use something called AxDev Tools. There is a free and a paid version. We only used the free version, so I can't speak to how effective the paid version is, but it is a browser extension on Chrome, Explorer, and Firefox. It is very similar to Wave in that it scans your applications and gives you a report for you to address. We also use something called Lighthouse Accessibility Audit, which is a tab inside of your dev tool. So it's also free. I really like this tool because it gives you the option to scan your application's desktop version and the mobile version. So you'll know if both of them are compliant or need fixes. This one also gives you the option to only scan for specific things. So if you only want to know your accessibility score, you can select just accessibility. If you wanted to do a full scan, it'll tell you things like load times, if certain things aren't loading properly, and just like general score from 0 to 100. We also use this free Chrome extension called Colorblindly that simulates how colors look for people with different forms of color blindness, which will essentially show you how other people are seeing your symbology. If everything looks, if everything looks the same to someone, then they can't identify symbols as quickly as you or I could. So, what happens if not everything is 100% compliant? I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, we would all be 100%, triple A, gold star compliant. But for the most part, and because of the requirement, the requirement is 2.1 double A, so you have to be right here in the middle area. Uh, a lot of organizations call this substantial conformance. It would be awesome if we would all be compliant, gold star compliant, but the goal is to do your best to accommodate everything that you can accommodate and find reasonable alternatives wherever you can. There are certain things within our current applications that aren't 100% compliant, and these are things that we have tried to fix or we provide some sort of alternative for. And there are also things that we've talked to Esri about fixing. We've talked to our service rep. We've also talked to customer service to find out if certain things that we were missing were things that could actually be applied or if it was something that wasn't available to us yet. In the meantime, what we ended up doing for us in our applications is we included obviously a statement of accessibility for the City of Carrollton. And we also included VPATs of each of the applications from Esri that essentially show Esri acknowledging where they are still lacking in compliance, so that everyone knows, the degrees to which you might or might not be compliant. Hopefully, we get to a point of perfect compliance, but we're not there yet. And hopefully we will be at some point in time. So other tools. I included a giant master list of all the resources that I came across that actually looked useful and that weren't hypothetically trying to, just sell you something. These are tools that I actually used, referenced, or included because other organizations heavily recommended them. So down here we have the actual Experience Builder accessibility documentation, which I mentioned earlier. There's a bunch of different color blindness extensions, since I know some of them are just for Chrome. And then these are all different types of screen readers. And then finally at the very bottom here, I actually have Esri's presentation on creating accessible content. I asked if they would give it to me as a reference, and they did. So I figured I'd include it in here for everybody else to see. And if everyone wants to look at what our applications look like, there is a link down here to our Carrollton Voting District's application. All of the other publicly accessible applications look pretty similar to this one. This one just happens to be like one of the easier ones to look at data-wise. So I included that inside of the story map for everybody to peruse and reference if anyone was interested. And that's it, actually. I don't have anything else to say. If you guys have
Okay.
anything else y'all need from me, y'all can contact me, or if you have questions right now, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, fantastic. Thanks, Miriam. We do appreciate the presentation. It's fantastic.
Cool.
So let's go ahead and Maya and I will take a look at the chat here and see if we've got some questions we
Yeah,
can
I've got a
send
bunch.
your
I've
way.
got a bunch I've noted. You
Alrighty.
may want to put your QR code back up, Miriam,
Yeah,
so
I'm
that
gonna scroll
people,
back up.
so that people can
There you
access
go.
your story map and link. We did have someone ask if we can share that. So guys, if you want to see this story map, please click that QR code and you'll have it yourself.
I can also put it in the chat if we need to.
Sure.
That
That's
way.
be great too.
Fantastic.
Okay, so I'll get started. How do you know if your PDF map is WCAG 2.1 compliant?
I believe there's actually tools that you can use, and actually within like Adobe Acrobat, there are ways for it to, I think they use AI for it, but it'll essentially scan your PDFs and go through and tell you, like these are things that you can add, or notes that you can add inside of your actual PDF. I think with maps, it's more just giving a description of what the map actually shows and potentially, saying like, hey, this is a map of the parks within the city of Carrollton. It's listing X, Y, and Z. You're not going to be able to give perfect descriptions for something that's so visual, but the goal there is that ideally everyone be informed on what is being shown on that PDF map.
Great. Okay, thank you. And I had several people ask when you said if you offered to share, I
Yeah,
believe it was the detailed compliance checklist,
yeah.
if I had that right. Please do share that. We've had a lot of people requesting that.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll figure out
Um,
how to do that. I don't know if I could do it through you guys or if I can just maybe put it in a download link inside of the actual story map itself because I tried to add it into the actual story map, but it kept crashing. I don't know. I think it was
oh
just
no,
like a size thing. It like would crash my story map. So I ended up exporting it as a PDF just to show it. But yeah, I'm happy to send it to anybody who wants to just reach out and let me know. Um, yeah, we don't own it. It's definitely just a generated list that our CIO created for us to be able to do this stuff.
that would be helpful. And you can always email it to info@urisatexas.org. And when we go and put the recording up on YouTube, we can
Hmm.
include a link to it there as well.
Okay,
So
excellent. I will do that then.
Yeah. By all means,
perfect.
yeah, send it our way. We'll help you get it distributed.
Perfect.
Yeah. Let's see. Next question. I have found that one of the background maps that Esri has stated as ADA compliant does not work for our in-house ADA compliance person. And when we use the background map that is ADA compliant, those without a need cannot tell what is the main focus of the map. Have any of you come across this and what is the fix to go forward?
I think what we've done is allow people to choose their own base map, which I know isn't exactly the most popular thing. We did throw around a couple different options. Originally, what we were going to do is include two base maps. So one of them was going to be titled like ADA compliant base map, and one was just going to be like the one that people usually like using. And if you want to use the ADA one, you would just turn it on. And if you didn't, you would just turn it off and use whatever we had provided. But what we ended up landing on just for the sake of building our applications was just having the base map selector available to anyone who wanted to use it. And then whatever base map they end up liking the most is whatever they're going to use anyway.
Right.
I,
Yeah,
as
that makes
far as
sense.
internal choices, I don't know. I think it's more of a internal discussion that you guys would have to have with your ADA person. Um, yeah, I can't speak to those decisions because every organization is going to make their own decisions about this kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's fair. Okay, next question. How did your GIS effort align with what IT/web was doing to be compliant?
Honestly, I think for the most part, our IT department just kind of trusted that we would know what was best for our department, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
We do technically fall under the IT department, but I think we have a really good just relationship with the IT department to the point where they were just like, here's a list of the things that you should probably look at. do that. And that was the extent of, how much they were checking. They have asked us recently if we feel good about the stuff that we've done. And so for the most part, yeah, we feel really good about everything. I don't recommend doing this in 2 months while you're also upgrading your enterprise portal stuff. But
Yep.
but but
Wise words.
yeah, but just, you know, you're gonna have to get it done. I think if you can get other departments to pitch in and get other departments to buy into the whole change, because we did get some questions occasionally as like, hey, I have to change X, Y, and Z on this map that I know that you use. It's for ADA compliance. And for the most part, no one said, no, you can't change that because everyone understood that this is something that we're gonna have to do anyway.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think having those conversations early so that it's not a surprise later would be good.
yeah, makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, did you have any issues with some of the tools not being able to get past a splash screen?
Oh, yeah, I think Lighthouse was giving us issues occasionally, but what we ended up doing, I think, is I think I turned it off for a little bit. Like I turned off the splash screen, tested the rest of the application, and then just turned the splash screen back on. Because I needed to
Mhm.
test the actual application. Like the splash screen gave its own report. But yeah, what we ended up doing, I think, is turning it off. And then I think for Lighthouse, there was a way for you to just if you run the whole tool, I think it runs through every facet of your application, not just the front end. If you start like picking through the list that it gives you, it for some reason it just picks one thing to focus on. So I would just suggest running the entire tool. But yeah, we turned off our splash screens when they were giving us issues, honestly.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Next question. Is Esri creating any tools or providing guidance with their products? You provided a link to their presentations from the user conference, but do you have any other thoughts on that?
Um, I think they have, if I remember correctly, inside of here, there's also, yeah, Esri accessibility resources and the community for accessibility. So everyone that has questions about accessibility stuff are going into that community and asking those questions there because everyone's working on this in real time. We're actually getting real answers in real time because everyone has these questions right now.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And the last question I saw was, is the city responsible if Esri products are not compliant?
So the answer to that in short is yes. And the only reason I know is because I talked to our CIO about this very recently. Essentially, it is the degree to which you are responsible, I think, is up for debate sometimes. But again, the way that this stuff works is that it's not that you're going to be perfect at everything compliance-wise, but it's having reasonable accommodation that kind of
Right.
gets you out of that like failure and potential lawsuits, which is, I know it's the reason that we're all, talking about this now. Um, if hypothetically, like for us, certain things aren't working, we make the conscious effort. And if someone contacts us and says, "Hey, I'm finding it really difficult to use your application. Can you get me this information?" Obviously, the answer is going to be yes, and we're going to help whomever that person is, the citizen, the business that's asking for this information. And that would count as an accommodation that we would be providing. So if they later decide this wasn't enough for me, and then, later something comes of that in a legal sense. I can't say to the success of a potential lawsuit, but hopefully it wouldn't happen. Ideally, we're all trying our best to be as accommodating as possible for these things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes for sure.
So I'm not
Let's
sure if
see.
not sure if we
Go
mentioned this to Maya or not, but Tim Nolan actually put up something here that and put a link for the GIS Pro. They had the state of Colorado as their keynote Just
Oh,
wanted to
yeah, yeah.
bring that up one
Thank
more
you.
time. So y'all should definitely check that one out because Miriam, you mentioned some of your checklists were out of Colorado, right? So
Yeah,
I
they
think
have really great
they tie in together.
resources,
Yeah,
genuine. It's truly, truly great stuff.
yeah. Thanks for sharing that link,
Yes.
Tim.
Mhm.
Got another question that came in here from Ethan. What are your recommendations for making custom widgets in the developer edition of Experience Builder compliant? We already have them working, but we hadn't considered compliance while making them.
I think depending on what your widgets are doing will depend on the degree of compliance that you're going to have to take into consideration. So I think the only widget that I know of right now is that state of Minnesota's environmental web app. So as I said previously, the select tool doesn't actually work um, in a compliant way. Um, so you like for example, if someone is using keyboard navigation, they're not using a mouse to navigate on a web app. And so you can't actually go into a web app and select something. For example, if you're trying to get information, I don't know, about a school district, you can't click on it. So what they've done with SDK for JavaScript is created essentially, they have a little crosshatch in the middle of their web app that you can then pan your map underneath to go to that crosshatch and then click enter and it opens up whatever it is that you're selecting. It's genius, honestly. I didn't know what it was originally, but it's so so smart. But things like that, like the things that you don't think about until you're having to test them against hypothetically, well, how would you get this information if you didn't have the option to use a mouse?
Mm,
Um,
Yeah,
yeah, thinking about it
good
that way,
point.
I think gives you a bit of a different perspective.
yeah, for sure. Lucas
Absolutely.
said, Esri, please add that as a widget. Amen to that.
Oh my
I saw
gosh,
that. Yeah.
wouldn't it be ideal?
Wouldn't that be so lovely? You have been getting some wonderful compliments here in the
Hmm.
chat. People are just saying they're so appreciative and a great presentation and
Yeah.
one of the best presentations for ADA. So this information is so valuable and we are so grateful that you took some time to share it with us and to just share your lessons learned and tips and tricks for all of us, moving forward. So thank you again. Last call for any questions. You're welcome to type, or you can certainly unmute and ask if you like.
Yep. By all means, a great presentation, Miriam.
Hey
Definitely
guys.
appreciate it. And so, yeah, everybody online here, will be on the lookout for your PDH. We'll get this published up to the YouTube channel here shortly. Miriam, if you have that PDF that you're going to give us to maybe help us send it out to folks, vice versa, if they want to contact or get it linked through your QR code. But now this has been fantastic. We'll look for you all again next month. We're a little early. If anybody has any additional questions, we can stick around a few more minutes, but otherwise we can give you all a little bit of time back in your day. But Miriam, again, thanks a bunch for sitting with us today. It's
No, of course.
you did a fantastic job, and um, Maya, it's always a pleasure co-hosting this with you. So,
Sure, absolutely.
anything else we need to talk about today, or we think we're good with no
I
more
think we're
questions?
good.
Okay.
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone who showed up and joined us.
Yeah.
We hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yeah.
And if you're in Texas, try to stay cool. It's hot.
It's so
Yeah,
hot.
by all
So
means. And
freaking hot.
if you all are looking to volunteer, please give us a call.
Oh, yeah,
GPN
yeah, for sure.
Texas, we are always looking for volunteers. It's a great
Yeah,
network, great group of folks. And so by all means, let us know if you're interested in helping out with the speaker series or anything else along with us.
hmm
Please get
hmm
involved. We're always we're open arms to everybody. So, all right.
absolutely.
Y'all have a good rest of your day and good rest of your week. And Miriam, again, thanks a bunch. We'll see you
Thank
all
you
next month.